My name is Anita, and I will be discussing book challenges, not just for school libraries. The 5 perspectives that I will be covering in my forthcoming wiki pages will include definitions of and common reasons for challenges and banning attempts, our responsibilities as librarians, including the ALA Code of Ethics and the Library Bill of Rights, the process of handling book challenges, available to help, the Freedom to Read Foundation and the Office of Intellectual Freedom, and an example to bear in mind, West Bend, Wisconsin. However, today my discussion will center on the first 2 topics in order to provide enough background information to begin considering the topics covered in my wiki pages, such as how we as librarians will handle these situations, where we can turn for assistance, and just how far attempted banning can go, even in the public library. To begin, I will provide a bit of statistical information to illustrate how prevalent book challenges are and in which institutions they are occurring. According to the ALA's Office of Intellectual Freedom, over the past 8 years, American libraries were faced with 3,736 challenges. Although it's reasonable and correct to expect that a majority of these challenges take place in classrooms and school libraries, roughly a quarter of these took place in public libraries. 1,176 of these challenges, approximately 31%, were in classrooms, 37% were in school libraries, and 24% took place in public libraries. There were less than 76 challenges to college classes and only 36 to academic libraries. Clearly, based upon these statistics, public libraries certainly experienced their share of challenges. Between 1990 and 2008, the statistics have remained consistent with those from the past 8 years. This graph gives a visual depiction of the prevalence of challenges issued in libraries. When the categories of school libraries and schools, meaning classroom challenges, are broken into discrete categories, it becomes clear that public libraries lag only slightly behind in the number of challenges they have received during this time period. When considering books and materials challenges in libraries, it is important to define the different types of manifestations that challenges can take. Many of these terms tend to be conflated in common parlance. The Intellectual Freedom Manual gives thorough definitions of each of 5 actions that may be labeled a challenge. First is the expression of concern. This is an inquiry that has judgmental overtones. Second is the oral complaint. This is an oral challenge to the presence and/or appropriateness of the material in question. Thirdly, we have the written complaint. This is a formal complaint filed with the institution challenging the presence and/or appropriateness of the specific material. Next, we have the public attack. This is defined as a publicly disseminated statement challenging the value of material presented to the media and/or others outside the institutional organization in order to gain public support for further action. And finally, we have censorship. This is a change in the access status of material based on the content of the work and made by a governing authority or its representatives. Such changes include exclusion, restriction, removal, or age grade level changes. These different actions do not necessarily occur in isolation. As in the situation in West Bend, Wisconsin, which we will learn more about in my wiki pages, several of these actions may build upon each other, moving from oral to written complaint to public attack, all in an effort to achieve censorship. There exists a myriad of possible reasons that a book or library resource may be challenged, and as you can see by this graph, many of these are clearly geared toward the protection of children. As I'm sure you noticed in the previous graph, there are 3 challenge reasons that outweigh the others. The Office of Intellectual Freedom cites the following 3 reasons as being the most common. Number 1, the material was considered to be sexually explicit. Number 2, the material contained offensive language. And number 3, the material was unsuited to age group. While the reasons that books are most commonly challenged seem perfectly commendable to most, we as librarians have professional obligations with regard to the access and certainly the restriction of information. So in the face of challenges, what are our professional responsibilities as librarians? According to the ALA Code of Ethics, we significantly influence or control the selection, organization, preservation, and dissemination of information. In a political system grounded in an informed citizenry, we are members of a profession explicitly committed to intellectual freedom and the freedom of access to information. We have a special obligation to ensure the free flow of information and ideas to present and future generations. Also included in the ALA Code of Ethics are the following. Tenet number 2, we uphold the principles of intellectual freedom and resist all efforts to censor library resources. And number 7, we distinguish between our personal convictions and professional duties and do not allow our personal beliefs to interfere with fair representation of the aims of our institutions or the provision of access to their information resources. Another important document outlining the responsibilities of professional librarians and libraries is the Library Bill of Rights. The Library Bill of Rights outlines these responsibilities. Articles number 1 through 3 and number 5 discuss the various aspects of the responsibilities librarians and libraries have to their patrons and communities regarding access to information. Article 1 reads, books and other library resources should be provided for the interest, information, and enlightenment of all people of the community the library serves. Materials should not be excluded because of the origin, background, or views of those contributing to their creation. Article number 2 reads, libraries should provide materials and information presenting all points of view on current and historical issues. Materials should not be proscribed or removed because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval. Article number 3 reads, libraries should challenge censorship in the fulfillment of their responsibility to provide information and enlightenment. And finally, Article 5 reads, a person's right to use a library should not be denied or abridged because of origin, age, background, or views. Article 5 particularly addresses the question of child protection that is so often raised in book challenges. Although the articles themselves have been written to be broad, there are interpretations available, and the interpretation of Article 5 more specifically addresses this issue. Children and young adults unquestionably possess First Amendment rights, including the right to receive information through the library in print, non-print, or digital formats. Constitutionally protected speech cannot be suppressed solely to protect children or young adults from ideas or images a legislative body believes to be unsuitable for them. Librarians and library governing bodies should not resort to age restrictions in an effort to avoid actual or anticipated objections, because only a court of law can determine whether material is not constitutionally protected. The interpretation of Article 5 goes on to state, as libraries in American value states, we affirm the responsibility and the right of all parents and guardians to guide their own children's use of the library and its resources and services. Librarians and library governing bodies cannot assume the role of parents or the functions of parental authority in the private relationship between parent and child. Librarians and governing bodies should maintain that only parents and guardians have the right and the responsibility to determine their children's and only their children's access to library sources. Parents and guardians who do not want their children to have access to specific library services, materials, or facilities should so advise their children. You can tune into my wiki page for more information, such as the recommended process for handling book challenges, where to go for help, and West Bend from written complaint to dismissal of board members to book burning demands, and not even in a school library. Thank you.